Tess is determined to leave as quickly as possible, as any more minutes spent in the house could mean more time lost. She pens a note, takes her bag, and steps out. She begins the journey in the car without high emotions, just a sketchy plan of what she hopes to achieve with this move. Her first hurdle is passing through New York's toll gate and paying the fees. The toll booth attendant tells her it's $7 to get in, and she's surprised at such an amount. Still, it's the price she needs to pay to get closer to her vision. She enters a pub and requests the keys Jessie left her. She's given the keys, so she makes her way to the apartment. The next morning, she meets a couple and seeks to sell her car. The man can only afford to buy it for $800, but this doesn't meet her valuation. She explains that she's selling the car to pay her rent as she just moved, and that amount will do nothing to aid her cause. The couple turn to leave, but Tess knows she needs the cash more than they need the car, so she sells the car without thinking twice. Tess begins life in the city, handing in her resume to different businesses, even getting interviews on the spot. She heads to another spot and meets Howard, whose first question is why she decided on New York as her destination. Tess says she felt drawn to the city, then proceeds to compliment the man's finely done nails. He wants to know her knowledge of wines, but she has no expertise there and no experience in restaurant services. He tries to make the interview friendly for her, asking what she's reading at the moment since she majored in English, but she wonders if that's a normal interview question. Well, it's not a normal restaurant either, with Howard inferring she should flow with his line of questions. Tess used to have books, but she didn't make this move with all of them, seeking a clean slate for this new start she's decided on. Howard wants to know her future plans. Maybe she wants to be a writer or an actor, but she has no answer for that. She made the move on her own, and even when the interviewer thinks it's a brave thing she's done, it hasn't felt so for her since she arrived. He shakes her hand and wishes her luck before stepping away from the table, but she stops him and thanks him for making the session quite relaxing for her, different from what she's experienced all day. She's home. And after making her bed, she gulps from a bottle before sleeping. It's evening again. She heads to the phone booth and calls her dad, who is very vocal and against her move. Tess keeps trying to pacify him over the phone, but he's too assertive with his opinion. Even when she mentions her job invitation, nothing changes, making her explain in excess. Still, the man on the other end hangs up after clearly passing his message, prompting her to get sad, almost teary. Tess resumes her new job, entering through the back to a bunch of workers who won't even blink at her, just walking past as if she's invisible. She's ready for the day when Will walks up to her and gives her the basic rule: talk to no one unless asked to by him. Also, the place is short on bar mops, and while people hide them, she's free to make do with any she can find. The man takes her around the kitchen and spells out almost half of the job for her, telling her every meal has a manual and introducing her to certain kitchen sections and individuals. She sees a colleague sobbing in a corner, but as she tries to show empathy, she's called to continue the tour. At the end of the tour, she heads over to the big dining table for workers only, after being told that anyone who misses family meals has missed the portion for the day. She just stares as everyone blabs and chats, continuing her habit of biting her nails, the same thing she was warned against just seconds earlier. She's given a seat and a table away from the main one, and just then, Howard enters with a jar of wine that a worker serves to everyone except the new lady. It's routine for everyone to guess the wine and its ingredients, and while they all try, Simone easily guesses everything correctly. Her knowledge impresses Howard. He reminds them to serve well and take proper care of the people. As he's about to step out, Tess says hi but is completely ignored as he walks away. The colleagues finish their meals, drop their plates in a tub on her table and leave the room. In the kitchen, she tries to steal a napkin just as Will suggested, but she's unsuccessful, until Simone approaches her, speaking as if she's taken a liking to her, even styling her properly while joking with another colleague. She tries to ask the guy who was crying earlier if he's feeling better, but the discussion takes a different turn when Will comes to take her away to serve a special client, Mrs. Neely. While searching for a sherry, she talks about Simone, and Will reveals that the lady isn't her friend. He hands her the sherry and tells her to go deliver it. Tess hands the bottle of sherry to the man at the bar, but he sends her to pour the contents on the lady's soup. Even though she declines, the man makes her do it. She walks up to the table and pours the sherry onto the soup, but the woman doesn't let her go, telling her she'd prefer to eat with someone by her side. So Tess takes a seat. The older woman talks about her days as a dancer and the woes that came with it. Surprisingly, she requests her soup, and when Tess explains that the soup's right in front of her, she gets a bit enraged, calling her Simone. Even when the server tries to touch her to calm her down, she snaps, alerting Howard, who shows up. He tells Tess to take the soup back to the kitchen to be heated, and warns her never to sit at a table again. She's in the kitchen and hands the meal to Simone, then tells her about the ordeal. They don't take it seriously, mentioning how the woman always comes from far away just to belong, and warning that sitting at the table could get her sacked, even though she hasn't been hired yet. They notice her bleeding from her nail-biting habit, but it's Sasha who decides to tend to her. He tells her he was crying because his pops just passed on, but he's still pushed to come to work. He finishes treating her nails and leaves, but not before calling her a baby monster and revealing where she can find another work shirt to replace the blood-stained one. As she changes into something else, Will shows up and tells her to go put out the salt shakers. Will is bothered by her lack of intensity, reminding her that he's supposed to score her at the end of every workday until her trail ends. He also reminds her she could fail her trails, naming the restaurant one of the best in New York. She heads out to attend to her job but finds Simone doing it already, and a discussion ensues. Simone wants to know what she and the older woman discussed, but Tess is more concerned about how lonely the woman is. Simone just laughs it off, reminding her that she doesn't know what loneliness means. Tess argues that Simone doesn't know her, but Simone insists she knows enough. She then bashes Tess for having a bad character and promises she'll fail her trial and go back to wherever she's from. Tess just stands there, defeated. She goes inside to take a breather, but Jake walks up to her and offers to take her somewhere better. They enter a storeroom, and he breaks open an oyster, handing her a piece to taste. She does, and immediately has flashes of making love to a man intensely. When asked what she tasted, she says salt, and in that moment, her face lights up. Then she requests another one. Tess is at work, and it seems her best isn't enough, as she's been corrected several times by her senior colleagues, running a rat race around the kitchen. She finally gets a breather, surrounded by colleagues bad-mouthing a few of the guests. She says hi to Jake and tries to start a conversation, but Will shows up and gives her a break after mentioning Howard's wife and the orchid flower in the same sentence. She's cleaning dishes but pauses to smell the meat from one of the plates when Howard shows up. She explains herself, but he advises her to either stop or do it in private. Wanting some empathy, she tells him she knows it's his wife who does the flowers and says they're beautiful, something she's always thought. Howard replies that his wife is no more, and the orchid is just a memorial for her. Tess feels awful for the misstep, but she was warned she'll feel with the revelation. He tells her to leave that aside and remember not to eat from the garbage. Elsewhere in the kitchen, Howard gives her a brief lecture on meals before handing her a slice to taste. She confesses it tastes nice. Proud, Howard welcomes her to the good life. Just then, they realize the kitchen is closed for the day. She tries to take some potato slices, but one chef quickly wraps them up, ignoring who's her. In the changing room, she finds Simone and Jake arguing mildly. They stop when she enters, making Tess apologize for intruding. She takes her stuff and then leaves. On her way home, she makes a stop to buy food and has a friendly chat with the seller. But when it's time to pay up, she realizes her wallet isn't with her. She apologizes and heads back to the restaurant to retrieve it. Back there, the place looks different from the classic setting she knows. Everyone is dressed casually and in party mode. Nikki offers her a seat, explaining it's Howard's way of relaxing the staff as anyone can drink as much as they want. Everyone's having a good time, but Tess just sits idle until Sasha shows up. She greets him, but he acts funny, literally. She guesses he'd be into vodka based on his Russian origin, but he says he hates vodka and even calls her racist before downing his favorite white wine, then storms out after getting a text. Simone enters the bar and asks Tess what she's drinking. Since Tess has no glass in front of her, Simone orders 2 glasses. Once served, she asks Tess to come with her. At their table, Tess apologizes for intruding on whatever Simone and Jake were doing, but Simone brushes it off. Tess tastes the wine, and Simone corrects how she drinks it, asking how it tastes for her. She walks Tess through how taste buds work, fascinating the younger woman, who asks how Simone knows so much. Simone says she invests in anything she's involved in, and now, Tess wants more, calling it a lesson. But Simone proudly insists it's just a conversation. Jake calls out, wanting to leave, but Simone ignores him. And even when Tess doesn't mind her joining him, Simone says she'd rather stay back. She only leaves when Howard comes to assign her tasks for the next day, walking off with him and leaving Tess behind. With everyone moving to the home bar, Tess gulps down the wine and decides to head home to rest. Nikki leaves her first and she mutters the lesson she learned from Simone. Sweet, sour, salty, bitter. And just then, Sasha enters and drags her along, saying he needs her help. On the way, he preps her, telling her to simply say that Uncle Mike says hi. At home bar, Tess is blocked from entering, but Sasha, surprisingly speaking Spanish, convinces the doorman, and she's allowed in. They meet a group of people, and one lady already disagrees with Tess as Sasha's choice for the job, but he doesn't care. He shows her around and reveals he was married, But his wife Ginger, who gave him his green card, is missing, and he needs Sophia's help to find her. Tess's job is to approach Sophia, say the words, then ask where Ginger is. As she moves to do it, Jake spots her, surprised she's there, and then derails her by offering a drink and grabbing her palms. The touch gives her a feeling she can't explain, so she quickly frees herself. At the bar, Jake orders 2 shots, and after tasting it, she tries to determine which taste the fruit has, making Jake realize Simone already talked to her. Tess calls Simone a great woman, promising not to meddle in their affair, but Jake quickly corrects her, explaining they only grew up as neighbors. Relaxed, she asks questions until Sasha pulls her away, reminding her of the job. She walks up to Sophia, greets her like an old friend, says the words, then asks for Ginger, but the huge lady stands and punches her in the face. Before more happens, Ari shows up and drags Tess away. In the restroom, Ari applies a substance to Tess's lips and kisses it off. Tess laughs, but Ari says she can confirm Tess isn't gay. She begs to try the white powder one more time, and Ari lets her sniff some, then comments on the hot bar lady. Sasha enters, commending Tess for a job well done, saying Ginger is in Arizona, but Tess presses for the truth and learns Uncle Mike is Sophia's enemy, hence the reaction. Furious, Tess scolds him for setting her up when he could have just been honest, then storms out. Before she leaves, Will calmly stops her. He orders drinks and takes her to a table, explaining why staff visit the bar often. The job can be demeaning with the kind of model being run, and the clients, so they come here to release stress. Soon other colleagues join the table, and Sasha makes a toast to finding his wife's location, even joking about making love to a cowboy on the way. Ari can't take her eyes off the hot bar attendant. A song comes on, and Tess lights up, schooling everyone on the writer and what she knows about him and the co-writer. She shares a childhood story of praying and hoping John Lennon would come for her birthday, only to be disappointed. Since then, she says, she never believed in God, until now. Everyone laughs, except Jake, who sits melancholic before leaving, and Tess notices, but joins in the laughter. Ready to leave, she still can't find her wallet, but a colleague offers to pay, and as she steps out, she sees Jake kissing Vivian in a dark corner. Tess oddly enjoys it, gives a smirks, and leaves smiling. On her way back, she stops at the roadside food stall, still without her wallet, but the man offers her a meal. She eats there, then walks home but feels sick on the way, even throwing up, but she laughs it off like she's high on something. Tess arrives home and practices setting the table. The next day at work, amidst the rush of serving, she joins in, attempting to carry more plates than she can manage, and drops one, shattering it. A few staff members, including Jake, call her out for her clumsiness, with Jake using harsh words. Will steps in to defuse the situation and assigns her to light service duties. While serving customers, Tess and Will discuss Scott, who loudly scolded Tess for the mishap. Will advises her not to dwell on it, as anyone can accidentally drop a plate, so they go on to deliver dishes to a guest's table, apologizing for a delayed meal, and Tess really performs well. At the wine bar area, Tess takes a break with a glass of water and observes Jake working the bar. Simone, busy nearby, approaches Tess and shares that she once dropped a plate while attempting the 3-plate carry herself. As they talk, Ari mentions that Serena wants to book a table at the restaurant. Ari pushes to accommodate her, but Simone refuses to bump someone else from the guest list. She also dismisses Ari's suggestion to involve Howard, insisting she can manage the list herself. Tess invites Will to her home to show him her table-setting efforts. Will is impressed, especially when she pours water into a cup flawlessly. When he asks about her living situation, she mentions her rarely seen roommate who works in finance. After sharing a drink, Will teaches her the proper technique for a 3-plate carry, guiding her hand gently. He warns her about the heat from the plates and places the plates by the fireside, and then on her arm, instructing her to endure the burn. Tess successfully holds the plates without dropping them, and while she's excited by her progress, Will shares in it too. Standing face to face, Will politely asks if he can kiss her. Surprised but charmed by his manners, Tess consents, and they kiss. As he deepens the kiss, she nearly drops the plates, but he reminds her to stay focused as part of the practice. Will continues kissing her. Tess feels a mix of excitement from holding the plates and Will's kisses. She lets out a sharp moan and drops the plates, unable to keep up. The next morning, Tess wakes up to Will sleeping beside her, unclothed. She resumes practicing with heated plates, but breaks one. At work, Ari, complaining about a date who ghosted her, takes Tess to serve guests. Tess has already shared last night's encounter with Ari, who immediately tells Heather. When Tess tries to object, Ari teases that they're not friends yet, so she can share gossip about her freely. Heather reveals she once had a fling with Will, describing his signature move of quickly escalating things and going down quickly, but calls him a sweet guy. Jake, visibly frustrated, accidentally drops a glass at the bar, drawing attention. After coworkers tease him, the boss politely questions his mistake and whether he can continue working. Jake insists he's fine and would rather burn the ice than take a break, but the boss assigns Tess to burn the ice while Jake stays at the bar. Unsure of the task, Tess receives harsh guidance from Jake. Curious, Tess asks if the boss is always so strict, and Jake calls him a robot in a tie. She also asks why Jake seems tense, and he reveals that Simone is pressuring him to return to their hometown, the Cape. While bending down to pick something up, Tess reveals a neck tattoo, which intrigues Jake. He touches her, sending a shiver through her, and then compliments the tattoo but quickly shifts gears, telling her to focus on work while offering to help with the ice. Tess insists on handling it herself, and a brief silence follows until Will arrives with an order, interrupting their moment. Sitting with Simone, who's sipping wine, Tess tests her wine knowledge and impresses Simone, who offers to lend her wine books. Howard stops by to address the issue of Serena's table reservation, making room for her despite Simone's dissatisfaction, even though she stays silent. Tess inquires about Serena from Sasha and others, learning that Serena was a dedicated server before marrying a wealthy guest at the restaurant, improving her life. Simone, however, resents Serena's presence and acts out whenever she visits or is mentioned. Will approaches and the group's awkwardness clues him in that Tess shared details of their night, but they playfully deny it, and Will laughs it off. That night, Tess and Jake spend the night together. At work, Tess successfully performs a 3-plate carry while ensuring that Scott notices it. She serves Serena and her husband, Fred, and while the boss makes the introduction, he praises Serena. Fred contrasts Serena's past as a server with Simone's current service. And just then, the server arrives with a sought-after bottle of wine, serving the couple amid light banter, then directs Tess to go set a table. Jake signals Tess to fetch a wine, and while in the winery, she overhears Serena pleading to rekindle her friendship with Simone, who remains bitter about Serena's marriage to Fred and insists she'd only reconnect if Serena left him, an impossibility. Simone notices Tess eavesdropping, calls her in, and Serena leaves. Tess encourages Simone to stay strong, to which she agrees, then takes over Tess's errand. After Serena and Fred leave, Tess clears their table and finds Simone inside the kitchen. She explains her resentment. Serena, once a young server like them, couldn't handle the job's demands and uncertainties, choosing a safer route by marrying Fred. Tess, puzzled by Simone's issue, reminds her about the promised wine books. After work, Tess visits the home bar and encounters Will, who invites her out on her day off. Seeing steam from a cup triggers memories of Jake, leading her to decline the offer. She tries to explain, but Will brushes it off. Sasha then calls everyone over, and they follow him, leaving Tess behind. Tess and Jake walk into the restaurant finely dressed, with hands locked together. They're welcomed in by Howard, who treats them well and offers them a table before Simone comes in to attend to them, even suggesting a special wine for them. As the server leaves, Jake leans towards her, asking if she wants what's coming, and she nods in affirmation. He then begins kissing her, until he stands up and grabs her by the waist, pulling her closer, taking off her dress strap and then kissing her intensely on her shoulders. She wakes up in her room moaning and shaking from the pleasure of the dream she just had. It's quite satisfying for her as she smiles and goes about her morning. On her way out, she bumps into an old acquaintance, and after hugs and pleasantries, she tells them she lives in New York all by herself. This surprises the girl and her mom, and they offer her a chance to join them for the day, but she declines politely, opting to go her way. She's at a restaurant and asks for a Merlot from France, but the waiter reveals they don't serve that, suggesting she can get the one from California instead. The man trying to feed his partner at one table, and the family having their fun time at another impress Tess. While she waits, she brings out a book to read, but gets bored immediately, and just then, the waiter returns with a glass of wine. She first smells it, then sips it like a wine taster would. It's evening, and she's at Simone's place uninvited to get the wine book she promised. She apologizes for showing up, but the older waitress is fine and even welcomes her in. Tess is fascinated by Simone's home, going around and feeding her eyes while the colleague explains certain items to her. She says the bathtub just in a corner was gotten 16 years ago, and her dream of doing so many wild things in it keeps her working hard, with it always in sight. Her phone rings, and she leaves to take it, but tells the visitor they should prepare to make dinner. She says it's a wrong number, then hands a knife to chop the vegetables while she changes into something more comfortable. She's back, and as they prepare a French toast, She begins talking about how she cooked with her mom while she was a kid, but Tess can't relate, hiding the fact that she was raised by her dad, instead saying they ate a lot of cereal and quick-fix meals. Simone makes her get a bottle of champagne and she pours it, teaching her how to do it alongside. She also gives her some history lessons on the wine and its root. She talks so highly of the wine, calling it a sword wrapped in whipped cream. She says she once lived in France, in Champagne to be precise, and Tess can't imagine Simone outside the restaurant, calling it weird. She holds Simone so highly that she thinks she's good at everything in the restaurant, and she doesn't think the place will function properly without her. They sit to have their meal, and after Simone reveals that she needs to pack for her trip, Tess quickly reveals that Jake spilled on their trip to the Cape. The older waitress reveals that Jake was her next-door neighbor, but he moved in with them after his mom passed on, making her like a second mom to him. She really wonders why the dude has a problem with visiting for a day when she needs him to help clear out the house for a sale. The doorbell dings, and it's a delivery man bearing flowers. But Simone isn't excited. When Tess asks, she says it's from a man who keeps insisting on having his way with her, so the younger waitress suggests they mess up the flowers, to which Simone agrees, and she begins, laughing while on it. The lady joins her in making the flowers a mess as they have fun destroying them. Simone stops abruptly, makes a sad face, and then picks herself up and begins clearing the dishes. While she's in the kitchen, Tess seeks permission to use the tub and she's allowed to. She talks about meeting people from her home city earlier in the day, and she wonders why they think she probably made a mistake moving to New York. Simone doesn't think she's made a mistake, as for her, moving to the city is never one, but she strongly holds that Jake is a mistake. She talks about men who like to act like they're damaged and dangerous just to get the reactions they need, while others really are. She expects her to understand, but if she doesn't, then it's fine too. It's an emotional moment for Tess as she reveals she doesn't have a mom, but Simone already knows. She pats her by the hair, showing empathy, with Tess shutting her eyes as if soaking in the empathy. She wakes up much later to Simone, finely dressed, ready to leave. She picks herself up and compliments her host. The lady doesn't sound excited like she was before she slept, and this makes Tess a bit uncomfortable, so she decides to leave at once. After she thanks her for the meal and welcoming her in, Simone says she could stop by again when she likes. She hands her the books, and Tess leaves, a bit frantic. She finds it hard to sleep, and it's about an hour to midnight, so she heads to the restaurant and finds her colleagues closing for the day and heading out. She tags along, but Will, who sees Tess and immediately loses interest in joining the team, bids them goodnight and takes off. They visit a Chinese restaurant, and there, they have fun, with everyone sharing what their last meal would be. Jake walks in, and, as usual, Tess feels a spark, and when he sits down, he mentions oysters as his favorite meal. Sasha mentions hot dogs as his, laughing loudly, while she mentions toast as hers, with everyone liking her preference. Jake sees a pack of cigarettes with her and takes a stick in his usual manner, leaning very closely to her before stepping outside. Heather talks about her sexual dreams with Howard, but they remind her that Howard won't give her the pleasure she's seeking. But of course, she's optimistic. Besides, his wife has passed on for 3 years now. The colleagues make a toast to Howard's manhood while Tess steps out. She meets Jake, who asks how she spent her day off. She talks but omits spending time with Simone, though he already knows, plus they don't keep anything from each other. He wants to know what she thinks about him going to the Cape, and Tess comes clean. She doesn't think he has to go back, calling the idea of home a past, and says no one should be made to go back to their past. In the heat of the moment, he kisses her, and while she tries to object in the first few seconds, she gives in, and they kiss passionately, with Jake lifting her up, pinning her against the wall, while they both increase the intensity. After their moment, he invites her over the next day, promising that they'll go watch Ari's show and cool off. Tess keeps basking in the euphoria of what just happened, touching and picking at her lips, as though she misses the kiss already. The colleagues step out and ask after Jake, but she says she isn't aware of his whereabouts. As they leave for home bar, Ari tells her to join them, and while she agrees, she's still getting pleasure from the kiss. The next day, Tess takes out her best lingerie, makes her hair look better, wears nice perfume, while reminiscing on all the times she has had contact with Jake, smiling along as the memories flood her mind. She steps out and meets with Santos, who hands her a bill and can't stop admiring her, even stating how beautiful she looks. He asks her why she's so heavily dressed, and she informs him that she has a date later that day. She heads to the restaurant and meets Sasha pacing at the entrance and speaking to himself, dressed in a suit and tie. When she wonders what the occasion is, he says it's his review with Howard. then brags about being promoted after the review, and Tess hopes he aces it. She meets a new face at the bar, but she's the new one, as the man is their fill-in guy for when someone's absent. Nikki isn't absent, so it can only be Jake, whom they confirm has made the impromptu trip to the Cape. Tess feels bad about it, but keeps her disappointment to herself, and proceeds to do her job. She can't find her shoes, so Will hands her a pair, but she almost rejects them, saying they won't be suitable to use on the floor. Things have switched up a bit, as she'd be washing dishes for that day. She wants Will to change her designation for the day to something better, like beverages, since she's having her final trial the next day, but it's out of Will's hands, as he's been relieved of his trailing duties. With how everything is going, it's already a sour day for Tess, but she has to face whatever she's given. At her post where she washes the dishes, Scott walks up to her and feeds her a meal that she absolutely loves. The chef is angry that the meal never makes the menu, no matter how sweet he makes it, taking a swipe at the restaurant. Ari shows up frustrated that Howard has asked her to play host to some guests as opposed to what she really prefers to do. She's in no mood for pleasantries and forced smiles, and when Tess offers to switch places with her, she rejects, as she can't afford to miss her own show. She takes out a gum-like pill and chews it, calling it a treat that makes her human. Tess begs her for a treat as well, so she hands her half and asks her to chew it immediately. She then curiously asks what the pill is, but Ari doesn't say, telling her she's asking a little too late. Tess seems to be functioning very efficiently, shining glasses and utensils on the floor when Sasha walks by. She asks about the review with Howard, so he tells her it wasn't a successful one, as Howard spent just 2 minutes with him, and remarked, "Too busy." She thinks he deserves an explanation, and urges him to demand one from Howard, but the moment the boss walks up to them and Sasha tries to make the demand, he shushes him. Sasha walks away, face to the ground, while the boss warns her against wearing such shoes on the floor. Back at the kitchen, she drinks water and wets herself with it, resting on the table afterwards. But a colleague hurls a wet napkin at her, speaking in a language she doesn't understand. Scott comes in and finds out that Tess had helped Santos with his check, and the other guy feels slighted, as he normally does that for all the undocumented guys working in the restaurant. He's demanding a fee before he lets go of the grudge, but Scott kicks against it, telling Tess to apologize and desist from helping Santos. She's unwilling, but later offers an apology, prompting the offended man to reveal that her shoes are in the garbage. She finds the shoes and resumes work, carrying crates to the bar area where she hears Jake's voice in her head, but in reality, it is Will talking. She inquires if Will is attending Ari's show, and he says he will, but for clarity's sake, he tells her he'll be having a friend come around, and Tess is fine with that. In that moment, Becky shows up disturbed, screaming and asking after Howard. She even breaks a glass to prove her rage. And just then, the boss shows up, but the lady isn't ready to stop causing a scene. As he takes her in for a discussion, she keeps yelling at him, telling him how he kept a certain knowledge from everyone, and now he's intending to send her somewhere else. He's out, and renders apologies to a few, then places some wine orders before speaking to Tess, telling her what a weird night it has been. On their way out at the close of work, Sasha talks about his failed review, mentioning Howard's unwritten rule against elevating certain people to servers. Heather takes an exception to his claim, causing a dispute between them. Tess manages to calm them down, but with everything that's been happening all day, she opts to go home. Sasha informs her that she doesn't need to go home, so she gives in, saying she just wants to feel better. He takes her to a bar and hands her a pill to take, while he takes one too. They take a shot alongside and then hit the dance floor. She's very high, and in that state, she starts seeing Will on the dance floor, and then Jake, standing at a distance, but she dusts her eyes and continues dancing, having a good time. She dances towards Scott, and after mentioning her love for his meal, she kisses him, but the chef isn't having that, calling the move unprofessional. She then continues, dancing towards Will, and joins the friends, slowly taking him away from his dance partner. In no time, the two are having a good time in the restroom. He notices her not-so-good countenance, so he stops to inquire. She says she's okay but doesn't think she wants to continue making love to him, so she pulls up her undies and leaves. Leaving Will at that moment is easy, but she finds it hard getting back to the dance floor, as her vision keeps getting blurry. Sasha shows up and informs her of Ari's after-party, then takes her there. It's a hotel room, and while she wonders how Ari could afford such a place, Sasha mentions it's an emergency credit Ari's parents handed her to use for as long as she stays in business school. Sasha is searching for stuff they can take, but Tess just wants water, even drinking directly from the tap. She complains of sweating and being cold at the same time, and just then, Sasha finds Xanax and hands her a pill to help douse the effect of the previous pill at the club. While Ari sniffs a substance, Sasha is without clothes on in the bathroom, while she smears a white sticky substance on his thighs. With both high, Tess says she had herself prepped up for Jake for the night, but clarifies that she wasn't expecting too much from him, and it was a case of her hoping he would turn up. They continue their weird moment, then head out to the balcony. There, Sasha talks about how sad it is that he has no wife and can't attain the post of a server, as Howard thinks he's a freak. Tess threatens to resign if he gets the unfair treatment continuously, but Sasha reminds her that she's still not an employee yet, inferring that it would be stupid of her. She mentions all his attributes she thinks can earn him a spot as a server, or even to replace the boss. She thinks he would do better in fixing things and would even add Scott's menu that the boss keeps ignoring. She thinks there are many things that need to be stopped at the office and is sure he can get it right, even firing Simone and hiring more black people. Sasha gives her a reality check, reminding her that when Jake returns the next day, she'll be back to her old self and not care about him or anything she has said so far. She pauses, as if he's right, and then steps in to get water. She returns in a jiffy and can't find Sasha. As she looks over the balcony, she finds Sasha's body on another floor, making her burst into crying. Tess sits by Sasha's bed in the hospital while he goes about making demands for Tess's comfort. He asks her to come close, and when she does, he holds her close to himself and rubs her arms like a baby. He encourages her with regards to her final trails and then calls her innocent. She wants to know what happened on the balcony. Sasha says it's just a fall, but doesn't reveal what exactly happened. Tess labels it scary, and so does Sasha. With Tess still in his arms, Sasha asks her to return. Ari and Heather enter and are empathetic towards his woes. He jokes that he was only seeking attention, hence the move. Tess decides to leave to go prepare for her final test, leaving Sasha and the ladies to have their fun. Now home, she takes her bath and makes the space conducive to study some books. At work, Tess sits on the other side of the table, writing her test when Howard, who's seated opposite her, chips in a question. She answers perfectly and goes back to writing, but shortly after, Scott chips in a question and she also answers it perfectly. Everyone, including Jake, Simone, and Nikki, take turns asking her questions, but the questions are just her imagination. Before she finishes, Will walks up to her and asks her to stop writing, citing time up. She protests, saying she needs more time, but Will doesn't care, telling her she probably did herself dirty by staying late. With the booklet in Will's possession, she asks him the effect of the written test in the overall rating, and he tells her it is very important. He assigns her to back waiting, tells her he'll be watching her closely all day, then leaves her. She's working when she sees Jake and Simone talking about someone, with Simone promising to avoid the said person. Tess steps inside to keep towels, and the older staff member walks up to her to say hi. The exchange is quite awkward and not like the last time they met, but Simone realizes she's nervous about her test, so she encourages her to walk around with her shoulders high. After Simone offers her dinner at a later date to celebrate her potential test success, she then asks her about their trip. Simone says it was fine and hands her a lavender from the Cape, a gift from herself and Jake. She asks her about the activities of the previous night, but decides they'll catch up on all that in their spare time, then wishes the young lady luck before leaving. Scott's done with a meal, and it is Tess available to go serve, so she does it, with Will watching keenly. She's nice to the guests, and even suggests a special wine to her colleague to serve the guests, drawing nice remarks from the colleague. She's by Nikki when the barman requests ice, but she already had that covered, and Nikki is impressed, calling her a fast learner. Will shows up again, but since she's been doing just fine, he leaves her to the job at hand but asks her to keep at it, making sure she doesn't drop a glass. She wonders how Nikki keeps away from all the drama at the restaurant, and his response is simple. His wife and 3 kids give him all the drama he needs. Jake enters, but Tess ignores him, making him ask her why she didn't even ask about his trip. She gives a cold answer, inferring she wasn't expecting him to go on the trip. She says she'll love to excuse herself from any game he's trying to play, and just then he cuts in, asking where she's from. She's surprised at that question, but goes ahead to answer that she's from Ohio. Nikki enters with news that Fred's looking for Simone, then sends Tess to go get Fred's coat from the coat wardrobe, the first she's heard of that section. She takes the coat when Ari comes to thank her for looking after Sasha. Tess then takes the chance to ask her about Jake and Simone, questioning their closeness, further asking if they're probably an item. Ari doesn't see them that way, but advises her to stay away from the duo. She also advises her to do a one-night stand with either of them and walk away when she mentions that they might want something from her. She returns and finds Fred scolding Jake for not helping him get Simone, and it almost gets heated between the two. Tess steps in to quell it, but it gets more intense, with it almost going physical between the men until Howard shows up and walks the guest out. Jake is visibly angry, and as he walks away, Tess tries to stop him to know what the matter was, but he frees himself from her hold. She persists, making him stop to spill. He says Fred's sleeping with Simone, and this confuses Tess. She knows that Serena and Simone are friends, hence it's a shock to her, but Jake doesn't say more. He just keeps his rage and walks off. Simone is busy with other guests, smiling and working, but she catches Tess's stare from a distance. Will meets her and tells her that Heather needs a wine order, but before she goes to get it, Tess brags about being the one who suggested that Heather serve that table with that wine. She's in the winery when she overhears Simone scolding Jake for revealing her affair with Fred. She calls it a betrayal and wonders why he can't keep certain things to himself. He talks about how she raised him since his childhood, but it seems he's only making moves to punish him. Jake is quiet, so she moves closer to him and tells him he's forgiven, then walks out, leaving him standing like a broken man. Tess makes sure she isn't seen, then proceeds to get her order before heading back. She's clearing a table when the boss walks up to her and reveals that she made a costly mistake with the wine she handed to Heather. He's sad they've served an expensive wine for a cheap amount, but warns her not to make such a mistake again. Tess is shaky, wondering how she made such a mess on her final trail. As she walks away, she misses a step on the stairs and falls down, crashing through the stairs and gathering everyone's attention. Will and a few colleagues help her up while they tell the guests to ignore the little show. The boss is in his office, surrounded by Simone and Will, while Tess sits, breathing very heavily. The boss wants to know how she's faring, asking for any discomfort, but she says she's totally fine. She goes on to apologize for any embarrassment she must have caused them and the establishment, promising to do better. But Howard isn't embarrassed, and neither are the staff members in the office. She asks to return to her shift, and he lets her go, but asks Will to stay back. The boss picks up Tess's test and commends her for doing averagely well, then asks Will about his assessment of the lady. Will mentions that she showed a lot of positives, connecting with the people and the guests, paying attention to details, asking questions as Howard would prefer his workers do, but states that she is better off on the floor than in the kitchen. He says she still needs some brushing up to do, and just then, Simone throws in the big question, asking if Tess passed her trails, demanding a yes or a no. Will says she failed it, but thinks if given another chance and put in the hands of Ari, then he's sure she can meet up to standards. After the boss dismisses Will, Simone informs him that Will and the new girl are having an affair. The boss wonders why she isn't advocating for Tess, whom she claims to like, but she says she still likes her. Then brings to his notice why the trails, the test, and the assessment models were put in place in the first place. She thinks the restaurant isn't meant for everyone, but Howard cuts in, reminding her that Jake wasn't perfect for the job, and in fact, he's firing him for his stupid action earlier. He talks about the thing between her and Fred, and she reassures him that she really cared about the man until Serena entered the scene. She makes reference to an incident that makes Howard talk about how he's been lonely since he lost his wife, also saying that incident was a mistake. Simone doesn't care, as she stands up and declares that Jake is going nowhere and she'll put word out for a new back waiter. She watches the guests from above and enjoys the scene till Will walks up to her. She jokingly tells him he must be happy with her fall, and of course he plays along and agrees with it, reminding her how she took him for granted. She apologizes to him, even though she thinks it might be too late, and then goes ahead to state her mistake of losing focus. Will extends grace to her, telling her he thinks she belongs in the restaurant. She walks back to the changing room to get off her clothes and finds a new sleeve on her locker, with Simone standing just behind her, congratulating her on her appointment. She's shocked to hear those words, wondering how it came to pass. The older worker helps the new girl wear her clothes and answer questions about why she was hired after making so many mistakes. Simone says Howard does things differently, working more with his instincts than anything else. She says Howard is capitalizing on her swift relationship with guests, then proceeds to say the boss probably finds her attractive, hence the appointment. As she leaves, she turns back and tells her to be careful henceforth though. Tess doesn't get why the warning is so sharp, but she says she just doesn't want her to fall down the stairs again, then gives a smirk. She resumes as a staff member, and while the echoes of words from staff members to her ring in her head, she takes a deep breath, a sign that she might be ready for what's ahead.